Hey guys, what's going on? Megan here. All right, so let's say you want to measure your testosterone levels, but you can't afford it, or the issues that the limitations that a testosterone test gives you. This is the perfect video for you. So let's say you're an athlete, or you're a regular guy, you work out, or you just care about your health in general, or you're trying to maximize muscle growth. Who cares? And you want to have a way to assess your net androgen status, your T levels. Then these are what I believe you should focus on based on my experience, and obviously because I've been both at the high end and the low end of the testosterone range, so I know exactly what works, what doesn't work. On top of coaching endless people, right? So these are the markers that are even more accurate than taking a testosterone blood test, right? So before I go into this, for the new guys, the beginners, or the guys who are not caught up to my videos, two things you gotta know about testosterone, right? Number one, when you're measuring your testosterone levels, right? I have to say testosterone because I have to dumb things down for the beginners. But when you're measuring your testosterone levels, the number itself doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean much. What you're really measuring is net androgen status. You're trying to figure out if you actually have the outcome of high testosterone, right? So when we say 1,000 nanogram per deciliter, or we say, oh, high testosterone, low testosterone, what we're really referring to is the effects of high testosterone, the effects of low testosterone, right? Meaning if you have high total testosterone in the blood, right, on your test results, but you don't have the symptoms or the signs that come with that, then it's useless. Same way, if you have low testosterone levels, right, in your blood test, but you feel great, you have a great sex drive, you build muscle fast, then it doesn't matter what your blood test shows you, right? So that's the first thing you guys have to understand is I use the word testosterone to refer to net androgen status, which is really what matters. The second thing you have to know is that a reason why testosterone blood tests are inaccurate for the most part is testosterone is always fluctuating. If you're natural, testosterone is always going up and down. So your T levels in the morning are not your T levels an hour later, 2 hours later, after you eat, after you see a woman, after you talk to guys. It's constantly going up and down because it's a hormone, right? It's not constantly elevated. Now, if you're on TRT, it's different, right? It's one of the reasons why TRT is banned, even though it puts your testosterone levels in the quote unquote normal range. It's banned by WADA. Why? Because it keeps your T levels stable. Meanwhile, when you're natural, your T levels are up, down, depending on what you do. When you're on TRT, you don't have that issue because no matter what you eat, no matter how poor your sleep is, no matter how overtrained you are, your T levels are stable and constant until your next injection, of course. All right. So let's get that out of the way. Now, if T levels are not accurate because of what I just explained, right? They fluctuate up and down, and they also don't reflect your net androgen status. Then what is an accurate way to estimate or measure your testosterone levels at home? And this is what this tier list is for, right? So let me give you guys an example. Let's pick something here. For example, oxygen. And by the way, when I say free, a lot of these things are free, or you could borrow them. You could get them from somebody else who has them, or if you want to pay for them, they're very affordable, very cheap. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. You could just buy it, and it will last you a lifetime, if not several years. Okay. So let's say what's something you guys are familiar with. Let's say your VO2 max, right? Your VO2 max, I'm gonna put that at very good. Right? Your VO2 max is something you can measure at home. You can measure it at any time. You could calculate it, whatever. And it's a very, very good predictor of your testosterone levels, right? Of course, it's not a one-to-one correlation. None of the things here have a one-to-one correlation because a lot of other factors are involved. But all else equal, your VO2 max is a very good predictor of your T levels, right? For many reasons, right? Watch my videos on what testosterone does to red blood cell production and heart function, stamina, all those things, right? Remember, testosterone is a warrior hormone as well as a sex hormone, so it increases everything that makes you a better fighter. There's a reason why MMA MMA fighters or the athletes will take testosterone to increase their red blood cells, or they'll just take EPO, right? They'll skip a step and go straight for EPO. Testosterone increases your stamina and all your performance markers when it comes to endurance and things like that. It's not just muscle mass. Everyone thinks it's just muscle mass. So your VO2 max is a very, very good. Not only is it a good predictor of longevity, but it's also a very good predictor of your net androgen status, right? And you see, if your T levels go down, your VO2 max will tank. If your T levels go up, your VO2 max will tend to go up as well. Same thing with your cortisol, right? Because remember, net androgen status is all of your androgens as well as your anabolic hormones divided by your anti-androgens, right? That includes cortisol and all the things that fuck up your or the catabolic hormone. So VO2 max, cheap, affordable. You could literally calculate it right now as you're watching this video. You could pause the video. If you know your resting heart rate, you can figure out what your VO2 max is, okay? Another one, right? So let's say your aggression levels. Let's say you wake up one day, assuming that you drank, you ate, whatever, and you feel really, not aggression in the bad sense, right? I'm not talking about you want to go out there and snap people's shit up. I'm talking about just positive aggression, wanting to conquer life, wanting to, get things done, right? That is a very, very good sign that for that time slot, for that snapshot in time, your net androgen status is high. And the reverse is also true, right? The moment your net androgen status drops, your aggression, your motivation for status, your motivation for, will also tank, okay? This one is very, very, very underrated, but it is a great predictor of your T levels, and that is your pump. I'm going to put that at good, right? If you get a sick pump, right, obviously from working out, but very easily, that's a very good sign that you have a good nitrogen status, and that's obviously, it's common sense. Testosterone increases nitric oxide production and activity. And also, if you're insulin sensitive, then you're going to have great pumps, especially after eating carbs and, things like that. You guys know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you eat carbs, you just feel your body swelling. That's a great sign of insulin sensitivity. And sure enough, insulin sensitivity is one of the biggest predictors of testosterone levels. So instead of taking a blood test to measure your insulin levels and all those other things, you could just look at how easy it is for you to get a pump. And that's assuming that you're well hydrated, because the reason I'm not putting it higher is because too many things can also impact your pump, right? Citrulline, arginine levels, sodium, things like that. But all else equal, when your T levels are high, your pumps are orgasmic, right? And sure enough, I coach people that are on steroids. I coach people who are natural. And I also coach people who used to be natty, got on the juice, and also people that went the other way, people that were on the juice and became natty. So that's why I have so much data to work with. And sure enough, guys that hop on the juice, one of the first things they tell me is, holy shit, Megan, my pump on pump day, by the way, my program is HSP training. We have a whole day dedicated to the pump. Their pumps are insane. The reverse is also true, right? When they hop off the juice and they do the exact same workout, same diet, same whatever, their pumps are nowhere where they used to be, right? And of course, we know the mechanisms behind that, right? So, the IGF-1 is involved, all those things. But yeah, so that's a very good sign of your net androgen status, good sign that is. Next, your counter movement jump, CMJ. That one is very good. Another thing that's very underrated. Not only that assesses your recovery status, but it's also a great sign of net androgen status for the simple fact that testosterone and the other androgens, as well as DHT, increase neuromuscular efficiency, right? So if you notice, and you could do this anywhere, literally, you could just wake up, test your counter movement jump. You could use tape to see where your average or peak level is. You could put it on the wall, and you could test it every morning. You could test it throughout the day. If you notice that is a big, big drop in your level, your CMJ, then that's a sign that your net androgen status, all else equal, of course, could be taking a hit, right? Remember, testosterone increases speed, power through the same mechanisms, right? It increases calcium entry into the cells. It increases neuromuscular efficiency. It reduces action potential, refractory period. I can go on and on. It affects polarization, depolarization, blah, 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 right? So very, very good sign. Very good predictor of net androgen status. Next, you have depression, right? So let's say you wake up and you feel depressed. You're losing your desire to live. Again, obviously hoping you're not trying to end things, but you know what I mean. Like you wake up and your mood is garbage, and you just lose it, right? You just have no interest in anything. That one is actually a very, very good sign of low net androgen status, right? Of course, other factors could play a role. This applies to everything here, but testosterone, especially DHT, plays a huge role in your mood, your well-being, and your symptoms of depression. Again, all else equal, right? If your freaking grandma dies and you're depressed, that doesn't mean necessarily that you have low T, right? And of course, it's because testosterone and obviously DHT, have many, many, many effects, not only on dopamine function, but also dopamine transporters, and DHT converts to metabolites that also activate the GABA receptor. So that impact GABA signaling. So yeah, depression is up there. Appetite. Now, most people don't know this, but testosterone increases your appetite, which makes sense. You know, it does the same thing in humans and in other animals. But I'm gonna put that at decent. That's not a good sign of net androgen status for the simple fact that you might just be a fat fuck, right? Obese people love to eat. That doesn't mean they have high T, right? So that's why I'm not gonna put it high, even though as your testosterone increases, your appetite tends to follow. The correlation is not as strong. There's causation, but again, it's not too many factors can muddy the waters. Next, so let's say you wake up one day and your ambition is through the roof. You know, you have very high ambition. You want to conquer everything, very similar to the aggression part here. But here's just your ambition, right? How big your goals are. That is a very, very good sign that your net androgen status, regardless of what your T levels are on paper, is good, right? Let's go fast. Now here we have your power output. All right, power output. You could try air bike, right, on the soul bike. Anything that measures watts, you know, that one is a very good sign of your net androgen status for the reasons that I explained earlier. Testosterone increases neuromuscular efficiency, it increases speed, it increases power, and it also increases, your pain threshold. So that's a very, very good sign of high net androgen status. And the reverse is also true. If you wake up one day and you try to do a 10 to 30-second test, right, on your saw bike or, anything that allows you to measure your watts, and you see a substantial drop in performance, yeah, something's wrong, right? Either your T levels are going down or your cortisol levels are going up or, something else along that line. Next, we have reaction time, right? So let's say your reaction time, which is easy. You could download an app to measure your reaction time, or you could use the ruler test. That one is cheap, right? Have somebody drop the ruler, blah, blah, blah. You could look this up, guys. It's very easy. Believe it or not, this is a good sign of net androgen status, right? People don't know this, but testosterone does affect reaction time. It's not high on the list because there are, again, many other factors that influence reaction time. People with fast reaction times are not necessarily super, super high T, right? There's many exceptions, but that's a very good way to test your net androgen status. And sure enough, if your NAS, right, net androgen status goes down, then you're gonna notice that your performance on any reaction time test will also go down. Next, we have your willpower, right? So let's say again, your willpower is through the roof one day. You're willing to do hard things. You no excuses. Then that is also a good sign of high net androgen status, right? But again, I'm not gonna put it high for many reasons. And it's also very hard to objective to quantify in an objective manner what your willpower is, right? Meanwhile, something like VO2 max is a number, right? Next, we have I believe this one, yeah, your resting. Wait, this one? Okay, yeah, your resting heart rate, right? Your resting heart rate, I'm going to put that decent, right? It's a decent proxy for your net androgen status. The reason why it's not higher is because that is influenced by so many things. In fact, the reason why it's not low on the list is simply because of the effects that testosterone has on your cardiovascular function and your ability to for your heart to pump blood into your to the rest of your body, blah blah blah. But I'm not gonna put it higher for the simple fact that you could be a marathon runner. You're gonna have crazy low resting heart rate, which is great, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you IT, right? So a lot of things can affect that, But you also gotta keep in mind that cortisol and being stressed out is gonna increase your resting heart rate, right? And obviously, high cortisol means lower net androgen status, so it's still worth looking at, right? And it's also used to calculate your VO2 max, so it's a decent marker. Ideally, you want it to be low. And by the way, comment below if you want me to make a video where I explain ranges for those numbers, right? What range you want to shoot for. All right, so now that brings me to this one, right? So let's say your stamina. You wake up one day, your stamina, your cardio are very similar to the VO2 max one. Let's say your cardio just takes a huge hit out of nowhere. That is actually a very good sign of, net androgen status, right? There are some exceptions, of course, right? Like the marathon runner thing that I mentioned before. But usually, again, it's the reason why athletes love EPO, right? It's the reason why they love training at apart from training at high altitude, there's a reason why they love using testosterone derivatives to increase their red blood cell production, right? Very, very, very powerful. Testosterone has a lot of powerful effects on your stamina, right? Your energy. Next, we have oxygen saturation. So that's you can measure that with what is it called? Pulse something. I think it's an oximeter. I forgot. In fact, I actually have one here. But yeah, so it just measures, oxygen saturation levels, right? Obviously, the goal is to be around 90 to 100. I'm going to put that at decent, right? I was going to put that bad, but I'm going to put that at decent, because testosterone does play a role in that, mainly through what I explained earlier, right? The effects of testosterone on EPO and red blood cell production and things like that. So you definitely want that to be within the range. Next, we have erections. Let's say your erections, you wake up one day and throughout the day, your erections are terrible, right? Not just erectile dysfunction, but let's say your erections are weaker, they're not as strong as they used to be. That is a very, very, very good way to assess. I don't care what your testosterone looks like on paper. If your erection quality is going down, very, very good sign that your net androgen status, is impacted, because both your androgens and your anti-androgens play a role in this, right? Next, after eating a meal, right? So let's say after eating a meal, you're tired, you're lethargic. But now within the first hour or so, that's fine, 30 minutes to an hour. But let's say 2-3 hours after eating a meal, and again, a decent meal. I'm not talking about like a huge buffet or something, but let's say after 30 minutes to an hour eating a meal, decent sized meal, not too big, you're still tired and sleepy. Yeah, that is a good sign that something is wrong with your net androgen status, right? So it's a good marker that you could use instead of buying a blood test, right? Like, how do you feel after eating? And of course, the reason is simple, right? Not only the inflammation lowers T, but also insulin sensitivity and things like that. All right, let's go. Yeah, so your desire to clap multiple cheeks, right? I've talked about that multiple times. Remember, men are not monogamous. This is just something that society and religion has imposed on us because it makes society better. Right? I'm not gonna, deny that. But monogamy is great for a stable society, but unfortunately, it's against our biological nature. But anyway, so your desire for polygamy, your desire to have multiple sex partners, your desire to have a freaking Genghis Khan harem, you know, that is a very, very good sign that your net androgen status is high that day. And sure enough, the reverse is also true. If your T levels go down, your net androgen status goes down, you're going to lose interest in sexual novelty, sexual variety. And yes, testosterone, has a clear dose-response relationship with this. Next, this one I call it the competitor test, right? So close your eyes, picture somebody that you hate, somebody that you can't stand, or somebody, it doesn't have to be somebody that you hate. It could be a competitor. Picture a competitor and then gauge how you feel. If you don't instantly feel the need to level up and the need to go out and exercise or train or work harder, right? I call it the competitor test. That is a very, very good sign that your net androgen status is low. And the reverse is also true. If you take the competitor test, you close your eyes, or you even look at a picture of your rival or an enemy or whatever, and then you get this urge to just go out there and conquer, go out there and work your ass off and do things that you hate to do, that's a very good sign that your net androgen status is high that day. And the reason is very simple. I explained that several times. It's because of what testosterone does to your amygdala, serotonin levels, blah, blah, blah. It primes your brain to be very sensitive to status threats. Next, sweating. A lot of people don't know this, but testosterone, makes you sweat more, Obviously, other factors also play a role, such as temperature and all those other things. But all else equal, there's a vast difference in sweat production between men and women, and also between high testosterone men and low testosterone men. But I'm going to put that at decent, right? I was going to put that bad, but I'm going to put that decent, right? Just because in fact, I want to put that at bad, right? For the sake of this video, right? Just because you're sweating more on Monday compared to Sunday, that does not necessarily mean that your testosterone levels are higher on that day. So even though testosterone does affect sweat production, it's not something I would look at as like, hey, look, I'm sweating a lot today. My T levels must be high. No, it could be way too many things. Next, your blood pressure. That one is that good. It's a very, very good sign of your net androgen status. Not just because testosterone obviously plays a role in nitric oxide, blood flow, heart function, but cortisol as well. Cortisol increases the shit out of your blood pressure. But, it's not higher because there's sodium, there's genetics, a lot of things can increase your blood pressure without impacting your net androgen status. So, but I still believe that every man should have a blood tester. What the fuck am I saying? I'm so tired. Every man should have a blood blood pressure monitor at home. They're very cheap, very affordable, and they'll last you a fucking lifetime. Not to mention, you want to live long, you should fucking know your blood pressure. What the fuck? All right. Next, you have your heart rate variability, your HRV. If you could find, again, I'm not sponsored by any of these products or watches, but if you could find a good way to measure your HRV, holy shit, that one is a very, very, very good gauge for your net androgen status. Very good, because it also it's impacted not just by your androgens, but a lot of your anti-androgens, especially cortisol, also impact your HRV. Obviously, you want it to be high, not low. Higher your HRV, the better. The more relaxed and calm you are. And yeah. So next we have losing interest in sex. Right. This one is very, very good sign. If your sex drive is low, I call it the bad bitch test. Right. So what you do is you pull up a picture of a woman that you know normally turns you on. I don't care if it's one of your slutty ass Instagram models. I don't care who it is. Pull out a picture of a female that typically turns you the fuck on and gauge your reaction. If that day or that point in time you not interested, not horny, that's a very, very, very big sign that your net androgen status is low. Remember, the goal of testosterone, it is a sex hormone. It is the goal of testosterone is to help you reproduce, and it makes your brain very sensitive to cues of of anything that has to do with sex, right? There's a reason why when you during puberty is when porn addiction goes through the roof, right? Duh. And there's also a reason why when men get castrated, their sex drive and porn consumption goes down. So very, very good sign, right? I call it the bad bitch test, right? Look up. And again, if it doesn't work with one woman, try another woman. Because remember, testosterone also increases, the desire for sexual conquest and multiple partners. So try it multiple times. Try one chick, doesn't work. Try another one. You might be bored of that bitch that day. And if after trying a bad bitch test on 3 different women, you still don't feel anything, you're not getting aroused, you're not getting an erection, holy fuck, something is wrong. So definitely do the usual, checklist. Look at your 10 testosterone commandments. Check out the video if you haven't, and see what you're doing wrong. Maybe it's your sleep, maybe it's your diet, training, lifestyle, inflammation, whatever. Next, we have, morning wood. Very, very, very good way to test, right? But again, I'm not gonna. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put this one at good, simply because you could have days where you just don't know that you have morning wood, right? People think morning wood has to happen right before you wake up. No, sometimes it happens in the middle of the night, and you don't even know it. So that's why I'm not gonna put it high for the sake of this video. So even though it's a very, very powerful sign of high or low DHT and testosterone as well, for the sake of this video, right? Because this video is for ways to quickly assess. I'm not gonna put it higher. Also, because what happens if you want to know your net androgen status at 2 p.m., right? You can't morning wood at 2 p.m., right? You're just chilling. So that's why I'm not going to put it higher, But in the morning, obviously, if this was only in the morning, then obviously I will rank this higher. So if your morning wood frequency is going down, let's say, in fact, in a video where I explain the numbers to shoot for, I'm going to go into details. So that's a good way to test at home. Next, you have your fasted blood sugar. I'm going to put this at very good. Right, and this is fasted blood sugar, meaning when you wake up in the morning, test it. Again, it's very cheap. Very cheap. You're not gonna feel the pain. Barely hurts. You could buy the fucking test strips at Walmart, or I think some places give it out for free. I think even your insurance gives it to you for free. But anyway, double check that one. But that's a good sign, mainly because it measures your insulin sensitivity. And remember, if your insulin sensitivity is trash, your net androgen status will tank. So measure your fasted blood sugar either in the morning or 3 hours after a meal. If 3 hours after a meal is still super elevated, again, I'm going to make the video where I explain what numbers to shoot for, then something is wrong. Let's see. The 1 mile run test, right? You just go running for 1 mile. And if you notice that on that day, your performance is terrible, right? I'm going to put this at good, right? It's a very good sign that your net androgen status is off, right? Something's wrong with your testosterone. So let's say you normally run a mile in, I don't know, let's say 10 minutes. And one day, assuming you drank enough water, you had enough sleep or whatever, you go for a run and it takes you 12, 13 minutes. Holy fuck, something is wrong with your NAS. And that starts everything I explained earlier about the role of T on, cardiovascular function. Next, your willingness to take risks. So again, let's say for whatever reason, a day comes by, you're not, and when I say willingness to take risk, guy, I'm referring to good risk, right? I'm not saying, oh, the desire to fucking go skydiving or jump off a bridge. No, just if you're a trader, taking risks in trading, approaching women, approaching strangers, standing up for yourself at work or whatever. A lot of you guys let your bosses bully you around. So if for whatever reason your willingness to take risks goes up or down, that's a good proxy for your net engine status. And I'm going to put this one at very good as well. See, a lot of stuff isn't very good. I want to make sure this tier list had a lot of high quality options. Next, your temperature. I want to put this at bad, right? Temperature is not a good. Matter of fact, I can't put it at bad because, yeah, I want to put this at bad, right? It's not a good sign of your net engine status. Now, I'm not going to put it at very bad for the simple fact that testosterone does impact temperature, but so does so many freaking things. It could just be fucking hot as fuck, right? Your temperature is going to go up and you're going to be like, oh my God, look, something's wrong. Right, so temperature is not a good sign. Of course, you don't want any extremes, right? You don't want your temperature to be too high. That might be a sign of inflammation, a fever, and that's obviously going to tank your T. And you also don't want your temperature to be too low, right? But I'm not going to use that, as a sign of your net estrogen status. Although, there's a link there. Next, you have your what's this one? The fuck? This is the downside of like not having a script. It's sometimes I completely forget what the fuck is on the list. Oh yeah. This one is high energy. Okay, yeah. So high energy, right? So let's say you get up one day and your energy levels are super high, through the roof. You just want to go ahead and conquer the world. You want to run. You want to work out. Holy fuck, that is one of the biggest signs of high testosterone, and the reverse is also true, right? So it's a great way to assess your net estrogen status. And at the end of the video, by the way, I'm going to take some from here and put them even higher on the list. So stay tuned. So if your energy levels are super high, I don't care what your T levels are, you're doing fine, right? Like I always say, signs and symptoms are more important than blood tests. Next, let's say you smell, right? One day, for whatever reason, strong body odor. And I know, even though testosterone affects body odor, that is not a good sign of net estrogen status, guys. Sometimes you just smell like ass, right? So I'm going to put this at very bad. Do not use smell, as an excuse. Like, oh, yeah, I read a study where testosterone affects body odor. I just have high T. No, maybe you're just dirty as fuck, right? Do not use this as a gauge of your net estrogen status. If you smell bad, take a shower, use some deodorant, or deal with it, right? So that's not a good marker. Next, anxiety, right? If you have anxiety one day, you just, I'm not talking about like normal fear where something bad happens to you, right? No, I'm talking about just anxiety, chronic anxiety, or you overly stress about things that normally don't bother you, right? Then yeah, that is a good proxy that something is impacting your net estrogen status. Not to mention the cortisol is going to fuck things up. Next, we have your refractory period. So let's say after clapping cheeks or after being your meat or whatever you guys do, you find out that it takes you a long time to reset. It takes you a long time to bust the next nut. Holy shit, that is a very good sign. A very good marker of net estrogen status. Men that are very high T have very short refractory periods. They'll bust a nut and then like boom, in a few minutes ready to go again. Meanwhile, the reverse is also true, right? Men that have very, very low net estrogen status are knocked the fuck out for hours after busting a nut, right? Their prolactin is way too high relative to their T, as well as, a bunch of other things. So that is definitely a good marker, right? Next, we have procrastination. But this one, I'm going to put this one at decent, right? Because it depends, right? You might just have ADHD, right? Now, if you're procrastinating on something that's going to increase your social status, then yeah, that's a big, big red flag as far as net estrogen status goes. But if you procrastinate on stuff like taking out the trash, walking the dog, that has nothing to do with your NAS. Next, we have your performance in the gym. Say everything feels heavier. You just feel tired. The weights feel like they're 20 pounds heavier than they usually are, blah, blah, blah. That is definitely a good sign. It's definitely a good marker for net estrogen status. I'm not putting it higher for the simple fact that you can't test that at home. You can just, you could get up and try to do pull-ups and push-ups, but this one was mainly referring to lifts in the gym. And last but not least, you have your hand grip strength. That one is in Mog's all. That is, out of everything here, this is the biggest predictor of your net androgen status, and I already went into the details why. Watch those videos so I don't repeat myself. Long story short, there's a ton of literature on this, a ton of studies on this. Not only it measures, the funny thing is, grip strength is even a good predictor of your sperm function. Think about that, right? So it measures your nitrogen status, your cortisol. It factors in your LGF1 levels. It factors in your T to C ratio, your DHT. For many reasons, right? Not just because of muscle mass and all that stuff, but mainly because, like I said earlier, testosterone impacts neuromuscular efficiency. It impacts calcium entry into cells. And even without the androgen receptor, testosterone and DHT still finds ways to increase power output. So very, very good predictor. And you could test this. Not only I've seen it with my clients, I've seen it with myself. You could test this at any moment. Do anything that tanks your testosterone, like the same day, not even the same day, like within the same hour, and you can see a huge drop in your grip strength. The reverse is also true. Do something that increases your T. I mean, even my clients who are on PEDs, I mean, they'll take Anadrol, they'll take, Superdrol or any short ester, compound, and then boom, their grip strength just skyrockets. So very, very, again, if you don't believe me, look up the studies or test it out for yourself. But again, I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, so I have zero incentive to lie. So I think every man should have a dynamometer. It's cheap. It's like 20 to 30 bucks. You can get it for free. If your friend has it, borrow it. And it's a great marker. And it's better than the blood test, because like I said, blood tests have limitations. All right, guys, hope this video helps. I got to go to the gym.